I knew something was wrong when the king's voice cracked during the prayer. It had never cracked before. My name is Osoto, and I was 15 the first time I truly understood what the Igue Festival meant. I had heard stories about it all my life. Everyone in Benin City talked about it once the Harmattan season started. They said it was the time the Oba performed sacred rites for the kingdom. They said the ancestors watched closely. Some people even whispered that if the rites were not done well, the whole land could feel it, sickness, hunger, or strange signs in the sky. But those were just stories to me, until that day. The morning began with a cold wind. The Harmattan dust moved through the streets in tiny clouds. By the time I reached the palace grounds with my uncle, the place was already full. Chiefs in heavy coral beads stood in long lines. The palace women walked quietly with bowls of chalk and herbs. Even the drummers were serious. No one joked. No one laughed. My uncle leaned close to me and said, "Watch everything. The Igue Festival is not small matter. The king must not make any mistake." I nodded, though I didn't fully understand the weight of his words. The Oba finally appeared, dressed in coral beads from his crown down to his chest. The whole crowd went silent. We all knelt. The dust settled around us like a soft blanket. The king looked calm, but something felt different in the air. It was heavy, like a pot waiting to boil over. The first rite was the blessing of the ancestral heads. The king held the sacred bowl in his hands. From where I stood, I could see the smoke rising from the herbs. And then, his hands shook. Not much, but enough that even the chiefs shifted uncomfortably. Then his voice cracked. The Oba never stuttered. He never hesitated. Hearing his voice break made my stomach twist. A few women around me gasped softly. Someone whispered, "This year will be tough." But the king continued the prayer. He didn't stop, even though we could all hear the strain in his voice. When he finished, he wiped his face gently and walked toward the sacred inner room where only he could enter. Once the door closed behind him, the murmurs began. Some people said the chief had broken a taboo. Others said the land was angry because the farming season had been poor. One man near me said he had seen a strange bird at his doorstep the night before, black with red eyes. He believed it was a sign. I didn't know what to believe. But as the minutes passed, the air felt thicker. Even the drummers played slowly, their beats soft and unsure. No one moved too much. No one wanted to draw attention from the spirits. Inside the sacred room, the king was offering prayers and blessings only he was allowed to perform. If the ancestors rejected the offering, he would know. And if he came out without the sacred chalk of acceptance, we would all know too. We waited. Every sound felt loud, the beating drums, the breath of the person beside me, the rustling of beads. I kept staring at the door, praying in my own heart even though I didn't know the exact words the king used. Finally, the door opened. The Oba stepped out slowly. His eyes were red, like someone who had been too close to smoke. But in his hand, he held the sacred chalk. When the chiefs saw it, their shoulders dropped with relief. A woman behind me started crying softly. Another raised her hands in thanks. The king lifted the chalk high, and the crowd broke into a low, grateful murmur. But the festival was not over. He now had to bless the people. One by one, he moved through the crowd. His steps were slower than usual. Everyone watched every move he made. When he stopped in front of an old woman known for complaining about the rituals, even she bowed her head deeply. No one wanted to offend the ancestors that day. When he blessed her, she let out a shaky sigh. I could tell she was relieved. The drums grew louder as the king continued. The smell of burning herbs became stronger. People began to smile again, but it was the kind of smile that comes after fear, soft, unsure at first, then growing slowly. When he reached my part of the crowd, I felt my heart beating hard. The king placed the chalk on my forehead lightly. For a moment, our eyes met. His were tired but steady. Something in that moment made me understand how heavy his duty really was. The whole kingdom rested on his shoulders. After he blessed the last group, he returned to his place. The chiefs formed a circle around him. They chanted words I had heard many times but never truly listened to. This time, I paid attention. Every word was about peace, health, and protection for the land. The final part of the festival began with the beating of the large royal drum. The sound was deep and strong. It echoed through the palace walls and into the city beyond. The tension in the air finally loosened. People began to dance, clap, and sing. For the first time that day, I saw the Oba smile. The festival ended with a feast, but my mind was still on the moment his voice cracked. It replayed in my head over and over. I realized then that even the king, with all his power and respect, was human. And that the festival was not just a show or a tradition. It was a bridge between the living and those who walked before us. It was a reminder that the kingdom's strength came from unity, respect, and belief in something greater than ourselves. Since that day, whenever the harmattan wind arrives and the drums start again, I remember that feeling, standing in the crowd, holding my breath, waiting to see if the ancestors would accept us. And every year, I understand the festival a little more. Because the Igue Festival is not only the king's duty. It is the heart of our people. It is the fear, the hope, and the peace we all share.